You are the words and the music. You are the song that I sing. You are the melody. You are the harmony. Praise to your name I will bring. You are the Lord of lords. You are the mighty God. You are the King of all kings. So now I give back to you the song that you gave to me. You are the song that I sing.
Thank you, Jason, for helping us out this morning, leading for us. It is good to be here. Doesn't it feel great? Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just me. Doesn't it feel great? That's key. Doesn't it feel great? Yeah, it does. It feels cool in here. It's cool outside. The weather's finally making a turn, and that is great for us. If you got your Bibles in there, you're supposed to. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 13 for just a second. Well, in a few minutes, we're going to hit that and talk about the story there a little bit. But as we begin, we're looking at our theme here. We're looking at better at talking with God, better at being able to communicate with God, and that's talking our prayer life. But as we get into that, I want to show you this slide here. That medicine. Do you like to take medicine? Anybody here like to take medicine? You know, if you have kids, you know, I'd rather take the whole bottle than have to give it to my kids. Because when they were younger, I mean, it's all right now. It's not as bad now because they can swallow a pill. That's much easier. But when you try to give them the syrup or the liquid stuff, you know, when I was a kid, Lee and I talked about this, it was the Donna gel. You remember that stuff? Tasted like rotten bananas. It left this texture in your mouth. And then as kids, you know, it should be much easier today because they didn't mix any sweet flavors in there with us. I remember my grandparents, when I had to stay with them and I got medicine, I had to get some medicine with molasses, so it wasn't that bad. But, you know, now they have you can put a sweet flavor in it. Would you like your medicine flavored? You know, they ask you that at the pharmacy. Yeah, but even when you had that, when you had to give your kids medicine, you had to hold them down, you know, and I'd take my hands out, I'd put it in the kid's mouth and kind of open it up, you know, and Lee would pour it in, and then they'd throw it up, and then you'd have to open it up again, you know, and pour it down. And that's the way it seemed like it was, because nobody likes to take their medicine. Nobody likes to take medicine. Well, when we look at this, I think it's time that we really take our medicine. I think we need a good dose of medicine as we look at our communication that we have with God. Because I think that all of us would agree, as we mentioned last week, I think all of us would agree that that's just one part of our life that we have, our spiritual life, our prayer life. That's just one aspect of it that seems to be ever-changing, and it's always one of those things that you constantly need to work on. And like I said last week, I don't know of anybody who would sit there and tell you, I am 100% completely happy with my prayer life. It's something that's always there that you need to do better. We're taught to pray without ceasing. How often do we pray during the day? What kind of prayers do we pray? And when I say prayers, I mean more along the lines of those that are just thank you for this food. More along the lines of those skeleton prayers I think we have. I mean prayers where we just honestly just break down and we talk to God. So I started thinking, why do I not pray as much as I should? And I think I boiled it down to a problem. I think I boiled it down to a problem of trying to find out what's wrong with me. And I think it's going to fit for what's wrong with you in your prayer life. Because you know we should be praying more. You know what God's done for us. You know the sacrifice. You know what's expected of you. You know all of those things of what you need to do. But putting them into practice makes it so difficult. And why is that? And I think it's because of just selfishness. I think selfishness is the key to it. Now you might say, no, I don't think that's it, man. I don't think selfishness is what's keeping me in my prayer life out of whack. I don't think that is. Well, let me tell you about mine. I've discovered, sadly, But the reason why I don't pray as much as I should is I simply just don't think about it. I think about it after the fact. I'll get down at the end of the day and I'll get ready to say my prayers before I go to bed, and I'll start thinking, I could have prayed a little more today. But it never crossed my mind. I had some friends over yesterday, did some things around the house, took the boys to basketball practice, piddled around in the garage for a little while, did a lot of things, didn't pray. Sat down and watched the ball game. Watched a little sports center afterwards, and started watching a movie with the family, enjoyed my day. Never crossed my mind. Crossed my mind, I was preaching today. Crossed my mind, I was preaching about prayer today. But at no point during the day, other than when I ate or when I went to bed, did I step out and say, you know what, this is a great time to just take a step back, go somewhere, and just be by myself for just a few minutes, get in the car, maybe drive around, and talk to God for a bit. It did not even enter my mind. Now, did I forget about the sacrifice? No. Did I forget what God has done for me? No. So why did I forget? Because I had a lot of things that I wanted to do yesterday. I had a lot of things that I wanted to enjoy yesterday. It was my day. It was my time. My. And when you actually start to look at it, the reasons why we forget to pray, or maybe we don't think about it, is because we are so consumed with everything else that we have going on. And I think that is selfishness. I think that's the root of all of it. So I think we have some sort of a me infection that we need to take our medicine for. And just like none of us ever want to take the medicine that we need, nobody ever wants to have that medicine just poured down our throats, but we know that when we get to the point where we realize we're sick enough, that's when we have to have it, right? You know that when you are to the point where you are so weak or you can't breathe because you're wheezing and fluids in your lungs and you feel rotten and you just can't, you know then that I need to take that medicine. Well, I want to see maybe if as we go through the lesson this morning, as we evaluate our own lives, as we try to look to see where we are in our relation with our prayer life, I wonder if there's going to be some people here today, and I think there will be, that are going to get to the point where they say, you know what? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of having this infection. I'm tired of just being selfish. I'm tired of letting this rule my life and not even giving a second thought to those things that I know I need to do. You realize how embarrassing it is for a minister of the gospel who does this every day. This is what I do. I teach Bible every day but Saturday. And I'm sitting here telling you that I just completely forgot about it yesterday. Except when I went to bed. But I don't think I'm alone. I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. So I think it's time we get our medicine. And the only medicine that is good, the only top medicine that you need for selfishness is a good, healthy dose of humility. Just a good, healthy dose of humility. So we're going to be looking at that, a little bit more of that humility next week a little more, but I want to talk more about the infection. I want to talk about more what the problem is about this selfishness. And that's where we're going to go to the text here in Genesis chapter 3. As you get ready for that, I'm going to read you some verses. I think I put some in the introduction, some other passages that I'm going to read to you. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 25. Matthew chapter 16, verses 24 and 25. Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit a man if he gains the whole world and he forfeits his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? See, well, the reason why selfishness is such a problem in this world is because when we get involved in it, we have completely just have ourselves overcome with self, and that's the total antithesis about what Christ wants us to be. If you wish to follow Christ, you deny yourself. You take up your cross, you follow Him. And that's the exact opposite of what we do. Romans 8, verse 6 talks about the mind that is set on the flesh is death. But the mind that is set on the Spirit is life, that we are drawn to that. So I think this is not just common to me, I think it's common to all of us. We are drawn to a protection of self, looking out for the own interest of self. And when we're trying to look out for that own interest of self, James tells us that that sort of mindset, that selfish ambition, is demonic. That's a demonic thought process. It's of the demons, instead of having that mindset of God. James 3, 14 through 16. That it's a mindset that comes only from the devil, of us looking out to better ourselves instead of other things. Now that's where it hits us a lot. Because in the story today, we have the story of Lot. And we know what happens with Abraham. I mean, we can trace the book of Genesis, and that promise of Abraham goes so deep. I mean, there are so many things that are affiliated with that promise. A great nation, a great name. He's gonna bless those that bless us, curse those who curse us. He's going to make this great nation, but he doesn't have a child yet. God's got to give him a child because his wife Sarah is barren, and she doesn't have a child until she's right at 100 years old. And when they have this child grows up and is going to be the heir of that promise, but is going to have another son, Jacob, and that Jacob is going to be heir to the 12 tribes, the 12 sons of Jacob, and that's going to be the nation of Israel, which is going to give us the Jews. It's going to lead us into the New Testament. But in the early stages of that, God says, Abram, I want you to leave your family. I want you to leave your father's house, and I want you to go to this land that I'm going to show you, and I'm going to bless you when you get there. Now, Abram's already rich. He already has a lot of flocks. He has herds. He has servants. He has herdsmen. Even when he doesn't have a son, after that promise that God gives him, he says, I still haven't got that son yet, God. Am I supposed to give, if I die between now and that time, am I supposed to give my inheritance to my oldest servant, Eliezer? He's got servants. He's a wealthy man. And when he leaves with his family, but he leaves his family there, but he takes Lot with him. Lot's his nephew. Lot's old enough to be married. Lot has a wife. And Lot, evidently, had become wealthy as well. Maybe they just come from a wealthy lineage, but as he's there, he's got flocks as well. He's got herdsmen. He's got servants. And they get to this place as they journey on the direction that God is telling them to go. They get to this place where there's just not a lot of grazing. And the herds are taking over, and the servants, the herdsmen, they're beginning to fight with one another, saying, this land here is supposed to be for Abraham's. He's supposed to have Abraham's cows and goats, and not yours, Lot. Yours is supposed to be over there. What gives you the right to take over this one? So the herdsmen begin to fight. The servants fight. So Abraham does this. When we begin reading in chapter 13, verse 8, Abram said to Lot, let there be no strife between you and me, between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if you take the right, then I will go to the left. Lot lifted up his eyes and saw the Jordan Valley. It was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the Garden of Eden. Lot chose for himself the Jordan Valley. Lot journeyed east. Thus they separated themselves. You got to admire Abraham, don't you? You know, I've often wondered the reason why maybe Abram is so close to Lot. If you look, it looks as though Abraham, could have been very close with his brothers, maybe even a twin. And as you look at that closeness that he might have had with his brothers, and his brother had died, Haran had died, and now he has this nephew. That Lot maybe is a young man, and Abram's probably taken him under his wing, kind of guided him around, showed him around things. He didn't have his own son. So take his nephew whose father had died, kind of just take him close, and just like any patriarch of a family, when it comes down, he's looking out for the best interest of his nephew, and he tells his nephew, he says, I tell you what, we need to separate. There's plenty of land for us all. I tell you what, you pick. I'll let you pick. If you decide to go this way, then I'll go that way. If you choose to go that way, then I'll go this way. I'm going to leave it up to you. And I think it's as innocent, and I think it's a blessing of Abram that he's doing this to Lot, and he never even enters his mind about the possibilities about what's going to happen, because he doesn't know what Lot is going to pick. But Lot looks at the land, and he sees, well, this is a lot of grazing land. And this has water on it. I mean, you realize, I wonder, as he talks with his wife, I wonder, honey, you think this might have been what it looked like in the Garden of Eden, you know? This is beautiful here. Let's take this. Abraham won't mind. Or else he wouldn't have given us the choice. I mean, this is going to make it easier for us. After all, Abraham's older. He's more established with himself. Maybe he's got more wisdom in tending to herds. And I don't have all that education yet. This would be easier for us when he knows the tricks of the trade to be able to make it. This is the place where we need to go. And we know that he chooses it, and we know that he goes, and Abram goes the other way. And we know from the reading here that as he gets ready to go, that the writer, Moses, points out to us that as he goes here, that this place was near Sodom. Verse 13, where the men of Sodom were wicked and great sinners. So I want you to see here, as Lot chooses this, is it a selfish choice? Somewhat. Would you criticize Lot for his choice? Probably not. Why? Because most of you would have done the same thing. I would have probably done the same thing. If a man comes to me and he says, I tell you what, I've got 2 pickups and I'm going to give you one of these pickups, Matt. I got this old jalopy that barely runs. In fact, I think the motor may be blown, and I don't even know if it'll crank right now. And I got this other one that runs great. I mean, I put new tires on it. It looks good. Not a scratch on it. Which one am I going to take? Somebody comes at you and says, I have 2 houses that I'm willing to give you. I'm going to give you 2 houses. You can pick one of the 2. One of them is an old shack. It doesn't have indoor plumbing. But the other one over here is a mansion. Which one are you going to take? You can have whichever one you want. It doesn't matter to me a bit in the world. Whichever one you take. Which one are you going to take? I got these 2 outfits, ladies. One of them I bought over here at a thrift store. It's got holes in it. Or I got this nice, I don't know, Gucci. I don't even know if they make dresses. I don't know. I don't wear dresses. Which one are you going to take? All right, now let's hit it really. I got a plate of salad, and I got a bucket of chicken. Which one are you going to take? See, we don't criticize that because we look at it and we say, if that were us and we were in the position of Lot, we looked over here and we saw all the good that this land offered and all the hard work we might have to do over here, and we thought, you know, if he didn't want us to pick, he wouldn't have gave us the choice. We're going to pick this one, Abraham. Appreciate it. Shake his hand. Maybe gave him a hug. We're going to separate ourselves. We'll see you later. Take care of yourself. We'll be close. We're going to head on over this way. And he takes his herdsmen and he takes his crops. And we know what happens. Lot starts out by putting his tents near Sodom. The next chapter, he's in Sodom. Chapter 19, he's at the gate and Sodom has rubbed off on him. Selfishness has driven Lot's decision. We'll talk a little bit about this, some of the points here. Selfishness does not consider spiritual hazards. I don't think Lot sat down with his wife. Miss Lot. I don't know if Lot and Miss Lot sat down like maybe some of us would do and say, okay, honey, let's look. What are the pros of selecting this land and what are the cons? You know, which do you think? If we go over here, we have water. If we go over there, we don't. That's a plus. That's a big plus for us. But it's near Sodom, Lot, and you know the reputation that Sodom has. And I wonder if Lot, in his mind, I wonder if Lot was there in his mind and he started thinking about the story. I wonder if during the process, if they had an over-exaggeration of their goodness, of their abilities, or if they had a underestimation of the power that the devil and that evil has over people there with Sodom. I don't know if he looked at it and said, oh, Sodom, honey, you know, I know you've got that as a negative. I know that's a con of us selecting this land, that it's even near there. But listen, honey, it's not in the city. It's just near that way. And come on, honey, look at it. Really? Are we that way? I mean, do we look like those kinds of people? Do we act like those kinds? We serve Jehovah God. Abram is my uncle. He's the patriarch. He's going to have all the blessings come through him. Surely we can handle ourselves with a little sin. Surely we can handle the temptation there, because we don't live like that and thought maybe they're good enough. They were smart enough. They were able to handle it so they could go over there and be immune to the temptations that the city of Sodom would offer. Or maybe he looked at it and said, you know, maybe it's not as bad as everybody says it is, honey. Or maybe Lot's wife looks at him and he's warning, saying, I don't know if we need to go near Sodom, but honey, you know, it may not be as bad as everybody says it is. You know, it's never as bad as it seems, is it? That's what they always say. Maybe it's not that bad. I don't think they even thought of it, do you? I don't think Sodom entered into their mind. Why? Because they were driven by better grass, better grazing, water. It's going to be easier. That's it. That's where we need to go. It's the bigger house. It's the bucket of chicken. It's the nicer dress. We look at it and we don't even think of the consideration of our spiritual life that might be affected by something as small of a choice as that right there. But when you look at the selfish ambition that is driving those actions, that selfish mindset, it doesn't even consider those hazards that are there, because we don't even think about them. We don't even think about the hazards that are presented there. We overestimate our goodness. We underestimate the power. We can miss services. We can miss a service here or there. I mean, we're Christians. We know, the Bible doesn't say we have to go every service. And the Bible doesn't say we have to do this. I mean, we're okay with this. We're entitled. There it is, isn't it? We may not say it, but that's what we mean. We're entitled. And we overestimate our goodness, and we underestimate the power that the devil has over us. And our selfish ambition has driven us to the point to where we are completely oblivious to these spiritual hazards. Look with me at Proverbs. Psalm. Let's look at Psalm first. Look at Psalm 141. Psalm 141. Look at verse 8 through 10. Listen to what David says here. But my eyes are toward you, O God, my Lord. In you I seek refuge. Leave me not defenseless. Keep me from the trap that they have laid for me, and from the snares of the evildoers. let the wicked fall into their own nets while I pass by safely. It says, keep me from the trap that they have laid for me, the snare of my evildoers. Let the wicked fall into their own nets while I pass by safely. If you want to put a cross-reference in your Bible to that, to Proverbs 26, verse 27, it says, whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and who pushes a stone away, that stone will roll back over on them. Now, what does that all mean when it gets to this? All right, I want you to look at it this way. You've ever seen a mouse trap? You've seen Tom and Jerry? You know how that works. You got a mouse trap. You put a big block of cheese on the trap, and the mouse looks at the cheese. And in your thought, you're thinking, the mouse is not going to look at the trap. The mouse is not smart enough to outsmart the trap. The mouse is looking at the cheese. He's going after the cheese because he wants the cheese. He's driven by the cheese. The cheese looks good, and he's going to go after it. And before you know it, it's trapped. It catches him because he never looks at the trap. He never looks at he never thinks, what is that cheese sitting on that wire for? He can't read. He can't see mouse trap written on it. But we can't we? See, a lot of these things like that we don't even give credence to. We just think are small decisions that are looking out for our best interest. I can work the extra overtime shift because I see this. But I avoid the spiritual hazard that it's going to cause me of not being with my brethren. I can give into this temptation here because if I go to this business meeting and if I drink with everybody else, if I'm able to do all this because I might be able to win this contract or get this account, it's going to be big for us, but we forget the spiritual hazard about what it might cause here. And the devil has set a trap. David says, don't let me fall into that trap that the evildoers have set before me. Lot sees the great land, and the trap of Sodom is just sitting there ready to pounce. Selfishness. Doesn't even consider the spiritual dangers and the hazards that are lying there for us. But also, selfishness causes us, as we get involved in it, selfishness causes compromise. Look in your Bibles back at Genesis. Verse 12. Verse 12. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities in the great valley and moved his tent as far as Sodom. When you read as far as, doesn't say that he goes into it. He just goes as far as that place is. Look in chapter 14. You see in verse 12. When these kings come and take Lot and his wife captive, Abraham has to go save them. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who was dwelling in Sodom and his possessions, and went on their way. So now he's living there. He's already compromised a little bit. Maybe Miss Lot said, you know what, Abram, we're not going to do those kinds of things, but we need food. We need groceries. And so sure is easier to go into Sodom and buy groceries at the marketplace. So they move in. Chapter 19 is where we get into the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. 2 angels came into Sodom that evening. Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom. Why at the gate? Well, I've heard different people talk about different things. A lot of people say, well, at the gate, maybe he's warning people. He doesn't want other people to come into the city, and maybe he sees strangers and he tries to encourage them to go otherwise. I don't know if that's the case. It could be. Sounds great. Might be the answer, but I don't really think so. Because when you look at the cities like this, that would be the size of Sodom, that's where all the business was done, at the gate of the city. It's where people would go and trade. Maybe Lot is now a businessman. Maybe Lot is there doing business and trade in Sodom, and maybe that's where he is. Now, he is aware of the dangers now, because he's right smack dab in the middle of it. And he gets to the point here where he sees these 2 angels coming, and something is different about them, where he notices they're not like everybody else. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them. He bowed himself with his face to the earth, and he said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up and go early on your way." They said, "No, but we'll spend the night in the town square." He pressed them strongly because now he's aware of those spiritual hazards. He's aware of the problems. "No, you don't need to stay here. You need to come and stay at my house, and I'll fix you food." So they go. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all of the men to the last man. Other versions read, every man of the city without excuse, from all the quarters surrounded the house, and they called to Lot and knocked on his door. Where are the men who came to you tonight, Lot? Bring them out to us that we may know them. They're not just talking to get to know them, to find out their business. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, and he shut the door after him, and he said, "I beg you, my brothers." I just noticed that. Did you see that? "I beg you, my brothers." Lot is now not only living in the city, but he's considering himself as one of them. "I beg you, my brothers, don't act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." Compromise. Compromise can be a good thing. It would be really great if our two political parties in this election would try to reach a compromise. That can be a good thing. But when we talk of our spiritual life, and we're talking about our selfish ambition, and we're talking about our own life, compromise is not something that God wants us to do. But when we are driven by our ambition, we are drawn to compromise our own self because we've avoided these hazards. What snapped in Lot, church? What snapped to cause Lot to say, "I have 2 daughters. You can take them." They've never been with a man. "And you can take them and do as you please." Guys, I'm right now Googling how much it's going to cost me to put a surveillance system in my basement because my daughter has a boyfriend. Emma, close your ears. Because I am aware of what's out there, and he's a great kid, but I'm aware of what is out there and the dangers. I'm just kidding him. I'm not doing that. What would bring a man to the point of taking 2 strangers into his house, and when they come to take the strangers, he did not have to say a word, did he? He didn't have to open his mouth. He could have just went outside and said, "Boys, listen, there's nothing for you here today. You need to go home, go to your own families, and leave me alone, and then go back in." But no. To throw them a bone, he says, "Here, you can take my girls." You think Lot, if you could stop the movie and rewind it and go back to when Lot is over here looking at the land with his wife and saying, "You know what, honey, maybe we don't need to go there because I can see myself one day, I can see myself in the city, and I can see myself just throwing my 2 daughters out there to be raped by a bunch of men. I don't think it's wise for us to go that route." You think he said that? You think he ever would have thought he would have done that? No. But when you fast forward the movie back, and he makes all these little choices that are driven by self, this is where he ends up. Nobody wakes up. Nobody wakes up and says, "I'm going to have an affair today." Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to rob a bank today. Man, it's been a great day to just rob a bank. Nobody decides, "I'm going to rape somebody today. I'm going to beat somebody to death today. I'm going to get drunk and go driving and just kill a family today." Nobody says those things. You know why? Because nobody wants to do those things. But you know what happens? the decisions that we make along the way that are slowly driven by self. When we rewind the story, we can trace it back to a moment in time where we're looking and we're avoiding the spiritual hazards because we're looking out thinking, man, this is going to be great for me. And that is what we do with our prayers, church. That's what we do with our prayer life. That's why our communication with God is being hampered, because we are not focusing on the right things. We need us a good dose of medicine. We need us a good dose of medicine so that we can stop the pattern that we have developed within our lives that is selfishly driven, that is looking out for me. Because when we look to me, and that's our DNA, that's what we're made to do that. That's ingrained in us. And we've got to stop that, because what's happening is we're so ingrained in that now, we get to the point where on a Saturday afternoon after we've had a long week, we're ready to sit back and enjoy our day and do our things, and you get like me and you're totally oblivious to the fact of, I should have prayed more yesterday because I had the time to do it and I didn't. Let's don't find ourselves taking that cheese. Let's don't find ourselves in that trap. Because if you get in it, church, it sure is hard to get out. Because the first step of getting out is you got to have a realization that you're in the trap and you got to come out. And that's when we sing this invitation song. This is your opportunity to step out of the aisle and say, that's me, I'm caught. Somebody get me out of this trap. Somebody help me stop this. Somebody help me stop this pattern of behavior. I need your help. Will you pray for me? Will you forgive me, God? Will you help me? And that's how we get that dose of humility. It's saying, I am wrong. I need you to fix me. The blood of Jesus is here. Salvation is here. But you got to be willing to accept it. You got to be willing to take it. It's a choice that you have to make, because He's already made His. So you look at your life, and if you're driven by that selfishness and you need to change, here's your chance to get out of it. As together we stand and we sing this invitation song.
You are the song that I sing. You are the melody. You are the harmony. Praise to your name I will bring. You are the Lord of lords. You are the mighty God. You are the King of all kings. So now I give back to you the song that you gave to me. You are the song that I sing.